at full speed near enough to have a flying shot at each other, without any kind of order, shouting and yelling all the time in the most wild and frantic manner, capering and cowering on their horses to evade their adversaries' fire. If one on either side happens to fall, a rush is made for the scalp, which brings the foes into close contact. The firing with guns then ceases, and the quick shooting of arrows commences, but the arrows soon cease also, and the spear comes into play, but this in turn is soon laid aside, and gives place to the bloody knife and deadly spampt. These are the last weapons used, except, perhaps, a few random shots at retiring. This last stage of the encounter or conflict is often severely contested, but does not last long. The moment a chief or principal man falls, fighting gives place to mourning. They get discouraged, and instantly fly without disgrace, and the battle is ended. The number slain on these occasions is comparatively few, and when the conquerors bear off in barbarous triumph a dozen scalps or so, it is thought a great victory. Their treaties of peace, though made with the utmost solemnity, are but the words of children, no sooner uttered than forgotten. With all this barbarity, however, they are kind and indulgent to their slaves. War not being their trade, there are but few slaves among them, and these few are adopted as children, and treated in all respects as members of the family. Next in order are their funeral ceremonies, mourning, 321, and manner of interment. When a chief, or other principal personage, is on his deathbed, he is surrounded by his relatives, who observe a strict silence and calm indifference while the zealous laugh goes through the solemnities of his office. But the moment the patient dies, the house or lodge is abandoned, and loud clamorous mourning commences. The whole camp, during the first burst of lamentation, join in the tumultuous uproar. This lasts for some hours without intermission, and then gives way to a dead silence, during which the body, wrapped in a new garment, is removed to the open air, and the house or lodge is razed to the ground. Every now and then the mourning bursts forth anew. The moment one begins, the whole instantly join, the cry being reinforced by the howling of dogs and screaming of children. A few hours after death the body is interred. For this purpose, a round hole is dug in some convenient spot, and the body is placed in a sitting posture, but inclining a little backwards, with the knees raised up nearly to the breast. All the most valuable trinkets and trophies of war possessed by the deceased are laid on his breast, supported by his knees, and interred along with the body. If any of these articles be withheld from the grave, the spirit of the deceased, according to the popular belief, can never be at rest. Consequently the custom is religiously observed. After the grave is filled up with earth and stones, a small pile of wood is placed over it, and several articles are suspended from the pile, indicating the quality of the deceased. If he be a warrior, the bow and scalp mark his grave. If a 322 hunter, an animal is portrayed thereon, the spear and salmon in like manner point out the fisherman's place of rest. Immediately after the interment, all the valuable property, such as horses, guns, bows, and other things not put into the grave, are destroyed and scattered around it as a sacrifice. The near relations then cut their hair short, scarify their flesh, besmear their faces and bodies, clothe themselves in old tattered garments, and abandon themselves to excessive mourning for many months together, strictly taking care not to mention the name of the deceased. If a husband dies, the widow, according to custom, must remain 2 years single, during which time she never paints, combs her hair, nor puts on new clothing. After some months, their loud lamentation is confined to the morning and evening, but in their grief, during the first months, they howl incessantly and desperately, as if excess of grief were to be measured by excess of noise. Yet no sooner are these wild fits over than they seem all of a sudden to forget their anguish, and at once resume a tranquil, placid, and cheerful countenance. They have no place appropriated for the reception of the dead, but their graves are generally on some eminence, rocky ground, or stony place, and the spot is always held sacred. Among these people there are no regular punishments instituted for crimes or offences of any kind, yet all transgressions are cognizable and punished by their laws, so as to ensure security to life and property. Theft, in particular, is held in the utmost abhorrence, so that it rarely occurs among them. 323. The property of each individual, even of the slave, is held sacred. They perfectly understand the nature of barter and traffic, and may be called, in their way, a commercial and trading people, but, like all Indians, they cannot resist the temptation of European articles, and will give everything they possess for the toys and trifles of the whites. They are a sedate and docile people, and very susceptible of improvement, and could, with comparatively little trouble, I am confident, be brought round to a state of civilization. Their superstitions seem to be the only barrier between them and the attainment of a more refined state. 324. Chapter XXI Calculation of time, singular manner of naming children, peculiar modes of address, anecdote of an Indian chief, Indian forbearance, conduct of the whites in Indian countries, comparison of crime between Indians and whites, manner of swaddling infants, hardships during infancy, savage customs, Indian constitution, chief cause of scanty population, a day's journey, calculation of distance, rough roads, Indian ideas, social habits, some remarks on the system adopted for converting Indians to the Christian faith. In calculating time, the Okinakens invariably use their fingers, and go by tens. A common mode of counting with them is by snows or winters. Ask an Indian his age, he immediately casts his eyes on his hands, calculates his age by his fingers, and answers by holding so many of them up to view, each finger standing for 10 years. Some of the most intelligent among them will reckon to 1,000 tolerably correct, but by far the greater part can scarcely count 20. Contrary to the customs in civilized life, the children are never weaned until they give up the breast of their own accord, or another child is born to supplant the former, nor is the child ever hand-fed. 325, while at the breast, but lives solely on its mother's milk till old enough to feed itself. Yet the infant is generally robust and healthy, but the mother soon becomes an old woman. Here a singularity in their manners presents itself, for the child never receives a name till it has done sucking its mother's breast, and then it is named according to the disposition it evinced up till that time. If a male child, fractious and ill-humored, it is named to please the ear, after some carnivorous bird or beast, such as the bear, the wolf or the vulture. If, on the contrary, it be mild and quiet, it will be named after the deer, the rabbit, or the pheasant, so that the name generally indicates the temper. And while we are speaking of names, it may be proper to follow that subject a little farther, because it is one that generally forms a striking characteristic of Indian manners. Indians of all classes change their names periodically, taking new ones according to fancy or caprice, and it is a peculiar habit, even a national custom, for the male and female children to address their parents in a manner peculiar to their sex, if I may so express myself, and to name their brothers and sisters according to their respective ages, as shall presently appear. To explain this rather knotty point, we shall suppose a family to consist of 6 children, 3 boys and 3 girls, besides the parents, and in order to make the thing as intelligible as possible, we shall again suppose that one of the boys, not the eldest, nor yet the youngest, but the middle one, is to address each of the 326 other members of the family. The boy then says, En Leo, my father, Eskoi my mother, En Kechek, my elder brother, Shintsa my younger brother, El Kikcha, my elder sister, El Shazspo, my younger sister, Shishi, my uncle, and Eswawisaw, my aunt. We shall now take the female in the same degree, that is, the middle one, who must say, En Mistum, my father, En Tuum, my mother, El Kekcha, my elder sister, El Shazops, my younger sister, El Karkitsa, my elder brother, El Shishintsa, my younger brother, Esmelt, my uncle, and Tartarqua, my aunt. Age and change of circumstance have great influence in causing change of names at different periods of life, but no change ever takes place in the above family mode of expression. During my first years among them, the chief went by the name of Itskakaetsa, or painted garment. After the death of the fox his father, he changed his name to Quilquilistshanaik Khan, or public speaker, and of late he has changed it again to that of Wistasmawakin, or the white bear, a name only assumed by chiefs or other great men, but in general these changes may be classed under 3 heads, one for youth, one for middle age, and one for old age. On our travels one day, we overtook a party of Indians, when one of my men accosted the chief, calling him by name. The chief looked steadfastly at him, but made no reply. Being called again by name, he turned half round, and with a significant air, said, "You white people say you know all things. Do you not then know that I have changed, 327, my name?" "No," said the man, "how could I know, for you change your names as often as the moon changes, but the whites, like the sun, never change." "And who made the moon?" said the Indian. God, to be sure, rejoined the man. And who made the sun? Continued the chief. The same who made the moon, was the reply. Then if God made us after the moon subject to change, and you after the sun unchangeable, why do you reproach us? In reproaching us, you reproach the Master of life. If you offend or even assault an Indian, he seldom resents at the moment, or shows any signs of violence or passion, but, on the contrary, he remains sullen, mute, and thoughtful. This forbearance, however, forebodes no good, for he broods over the insult or injury, and meditates revenge. Years may elapse, but the injury is still fresh in the savage breast, and there is but one way left for you to ward off the meditated blow, and regain his friendship, and that is, by a peace offering or present, for here property pays for all offenses. If one Indian kills another, the murderer saves his own life by making a suitable present to the nearest relative of the deceased, and they draw no line of distinction between accidental or justifiable homicide and willful murder. Death caused in any way by another is looked upon in the same criminal light. If a native flies into a passion with a white man, which is seldom the case, his passion or anger ought to be allowed to evaporate, and if you can muster 328 patience enough to keep your temper till his rage is past, you can then do with him just what you please, for nothing subdues and reforms a savage more than patience and silence on your part while he is giving way to anger. Forbearance and even-handed justice are far more successful instruments in governing Indians than powder and ball. The confirmation of this statement will be found in the spectacle of the millions of aborigines that inhabit this quarter of the globe alone, and the comparatively few white men, not perhaps 1 to 1,000, who live among them. Yet the white man does not always observe the golden rule of forbearance and even-handed justice, but often arbitrarily arrogates the right of domineering over the natives, and yet these, in almost all cases, yield without a murmur. And to our shame be it said, that reason and right, humanity and forbearance, are as often to be found among the savages themselves as among the whites, who live by sufferance among them. The Indian in his natural state is happy, with his trader he is happy, but the moment he begins to walk in the path of the white man his happiness is at an end. Like a wild animal in a cage, his luster is gone. However strongly we may abhor heathenism, and deprecate the savage character in its natural state, as compared to civilized humanity, yet we ought not, in our zeal for the one or abhorrence of the other, to suppress the truth, and the truth, therefore, compels us to admit that there are many traits of virtue to be met with in the Indian character. They are brave, generous, and often charitable, and to their 329 credit be it said, that there is less crime in an Indian camp of 500 souls than there is in a civilized village of but half that number. Let the lawyer or moralist point out the cause. Custom here constitutes law, not only in reference to the great affairs of the nation or tribe, but in trivial things also. A mother is not allowed to prepare swaddling clothes for an unborn infant, and, indeed, but little preparation is required, for the whole paraphernalia consists of but 4 articles: a rude piece of board, which serves for a cradle, a bit of skin, which serves to wrap the newborn babe in, some moss to lie on, and a string to lash the whole together. Thus secured, the bantling is carried about on its mother's back, or allowed to sprawl on the ground, in all weathers and all seasons. Tacitus found fault with the Roman ladies of his day for giving their children to Grecian women to nurse, and thus depriving the infant of maternal tenderness. What would the historian have thought had he seen an infant of the savage race, as practiced in these parts, tied naked on a hard board, and allowed to tumble and roll about as it best could? And yet this very race, or portion of the human family, is as perfect in form, as healthy and vigorous, as any people on the face of the earth. In traveling, the distance of places is always calculated according to time. If on horseback, a day's ride is estimated at about 70 of our miles, if on foot, at half that distance. This mode of calculating distances is, however, very erroneous, and not to be depended upon by the whites, as the natives seldom, 330, take into consideration either the good or bad state of the roads. But interruptions which are grievous obstacles to us are nothing in their way, for where a rabbit can pass, an Indian horse will pass, and where a horse can pass, the savage, who sticks on his back like a crab, passes over hill and dale, rock and ravine, at full speed, so that good roads or bad roads, rugged or smooth, all is alike to him. Nor is the fair sex less dexterous in managing the horse. A woman with one child on her back and another in her arms will course the fleetest steed over the most rugged and perilous country. In conversation they seem to possess but few ideas, and their answer is often a gesture expressive of approbation or dislike, at other times, simply yes or no, and yet, in their national harangues, they often display great energy of mind, inspire confidence, and frequently give a strong impulse to public opinion. While on their journeys, and indeed at all times, the men willingly aid in alleviating the hardships of the women, and are indulgent husbands. On all occasions they evince a steady and temperate disposition, and every action of their lives is more or less marked by intelligence and moderation. Having now performed, however imperfectly, the task we had undertaken, and brought to a close our description of the Okinawan nation, we shall proceed to make a few remarks on the moral and spiritual condition of these people, as a portion of the great family of mankind, as well as on the system generally pursued by missionaries in converting Indians to Christianity. 331. The Okinawans are a people that might soon, and with but very little trouble, be induced to throw off their savage habits altogether, as they are reforming fast, and exhibit on most occasions a strong desire and capacity for receiving moral and religious instruction. The last time I visited them was in 1825. And it was encouraging to witness their continued improvement. 97. When we contemplate the wide field open before us for missionary labors, even between the Rocky Mountains and the Pacific, and the large sums yearly spent in various parts of the world for the purposes of instructing and converting the heathen, shall we not then hope and expect that at some future day those blessings may be extended to the far West? Even a tithe of what is laid out in our country in England would, if rightly applied, be an inestimable blessing to these people. But the result would entirely depend on the manner in which the work of conversion was undertaken, and, with this impression on our minds, it seems to us expedient to make a few observations on the system generally followed in instructing and evangelizing the heathen in other parts of the world. Where the rays of evangelical light beam forth, that light alone, if practically improved, will not only discover the errors of the past, but point out a remedy for the future. But the great evil is, hesitation takes the place of determination, and no person wishes to begin the work of reforming any great system which has been long in operation, and more particularly so if it be considered by its promoters, 332, as working well, but in a case such as the present, in which the whole world is more or less concerned, others as well as the actual promoters ought to have a voice, and every voice inculcating improvement ought to be respected. Yet I am not vain enough to suppose that any opinion or representation of mine, however correct, will either reform the old or perfect the new system, because such things are not the work of a day nor of an individual. But if the suggestions now presented draw the attention of abler writers to the subject, I shall be satisfied. The pious and charitable world contribute with a liberal hand. The missionary is sent out to the wilderness to instruct and convert the heathen. So far all is well. The missionary reaches his destination, announces the gospel tidings, and commences his official duties. The young and the old are catechized, baptism is administered, and the sacrament of the Lord's Supper follows, and all these different glimpses of evangelical light succeed each other in such rapid succession as to stamp the whole proceeding with the character of a miracle. The calm and reflecting observer is confounded, and the pious Christian is struck with astonishment at the hurried and precipitate manner in which the wild and untutored savage is thus washed from all his sins, and received into the bosom of the Christian Church. In all this, however, there is nothing real. On the contrary, it is utterly impossible for the missionary, or any other man alive, to cultivate the soil, sow the seeds of gospel vegetation, and bring forth the matured fruits of regeneration in so short a time. 333. The missionary, in all this, no doubt follows his instructions. But this is not all. The missionary's journal goes home, more laborers are required for the vineyard, periodicals circulate the marvelous success, and all the world, except those on the spot, believe the report. Yet the picture is delusive. The savage is still a savage, and gross idolatry and barbarism have not yielded inwardly a hair's breadth to the influence of civilization. Far less is he made sensible of the obligations imposed upon him by his new creed. It is but a treacherous calm before a storm. The tree is known by its fruit. These reports are no sooner laid before the public than a pious interest is again excited, and the liberal hand of charity is again cheerfully held out to aid in civilizing mankind. Other missionaries are sent forth, who, to prove their own zeal and success, heighten if possible the coloring of the former picture, by the addition of still more marvelous reports, and in this manner they go on, as it were, at full gallop, according to the present system, without taking time to dispel that thick and heavy cloud of ignorance and barbarism so necessary to be removed from the savage mind before it is prepared to receive spiritual instruction, or appreciate the benefits of Christianity. The result is scarcely a form of godliness, the time allowed being insufficient for perfecting the work, or doing it as it ought to be done, and this very want of time is chiefly the rock on which the missionary bark universally founders. Before concluding this part of our subject, we, 334, might advert to another evil connected with the present system, and perhaps the worst of all evils, inasmuch as no effectual remedy can well be applied to it, that is, the interference of sects with one another, for no sooner does a missionary plant the standard of the gospel in any foreign land, but others of different persuasions follow, and it is no uncommon thing to see, in many parts of the heathen world, Papists and Protestants, with all the different branches of the two great sects, like rivals in trade, huddled together, working confusion, not only distracting and corrupting their converts, but destroying in their obstinacy the fruits of each other's labor, forgetting that they are all God's husbandmen, laboring in the same vineyard, and for the same master. Next to the British Empire, few countries on the globe have pursued the present system with more success than the Americans have done, yet the Americans themselves have found from long experience, as they now declare, that the system is defective, that the results produced nowise correspond to the means employed, and the same observation may be applied to every other quarter of the earth. Let us now consider the possibility of reforming this defective system. Considering the moral degradation of the heathen world, it behoves those who take an interest in changing the condition of the natural man, to apply the means best adapted for that purpose, and to recognize and avail themselves of every light that may in a practical way hold out a prospect of success, and if they do so, they will neither slight nor condemn, without an impartial and 335 patient investigation, any suggestions that may be offered with the view of forwarding the great and benevolent work of salvation. In the first place, then, all men generally know, and history bears testimony to the fact, that Indians, whether of the open plains or of the deserts, universally rove about from place to place, like beasts of prey, without any settled or permanent home. To counteract this habit ought to be the first step taken in order to bring about a healthy state of civilization, without which the missionary labors in vain. But this is not the work of an hour, nor of a day, but of years, I should have said generations, and time proportionate to the work must be allowed, moral restraints must gradually be imposed, and the savage, in place of his former precarious mode of living, must be taught not only to feel the wants, but to appreciate the blessings resulting from settled habits and practical industry. He must be taught to cultivate the ground, and be convinced from experience that his living and comforts are more certain from the soil than from the chase, before he can be brought a step farther. But according to the present system, in place of locating the Indians, as a preliminary step, and accustoming them to habits of industry and social order, the zealous missionary at once commences his course of religious instruction, without any step of the kind, and, while the savages have anything to eat, all goes on well. But the moment a new supply of food is required, that moment they disperse in all directions, according to their usual habits, leaving the missionary alone, and perhaps 336 months may elapse before they again reassemble on praying ground, losing today what they had gained yesterday, and this is generally the course pursued, a course productive of social evil and moral deterioration. What are the qualifications of the men generally sent out for the purpose of converting the heathen? These men have seldom any other recommendation than a knowledge of books. They are ignorant of the language, habits, and feelings of the people they have gone to convert, and have little experience in human nature. This alone is of itself sufficient to protract and retard, if not to frustrate altogether, the working of the system satisfactorily. In every quarter of the globe there are not wanting, if sought after, pious and philanthropic men, possessing the advantages of long and close personal intercourse with the natives of almost all countries. These are the men to be selected and sent out as pioneers among the heathen, men who might, from their local experience, at once infuse the elements of much good by their presence and example, and if such men cannot always be found, persons possessing at least a general knowledge of mankind, as well as of books, can. The work requires practical as well as pious men to set things a-going during the first probationary time, for I wish it to be distinctly understood that religious instruction should not be mixed up with the primary part of the plan at all, but may be introduced at any subsequent period, according to circumstances, as soon, but no sooner, than the degrading influence of the savage character begins to yield to the more genial and rational habits of civilized life. For one of the greatest evils in the 337 present system is, that men generally begin where they ought to end. They commence with religion before the heart is prepared to receive it. A thing easily got is thought but little of. Religion must therefore be kept for some time, as it were, at a distance from them. They must be taught to feel the want of it. They must ask for it, and they must be prepared to receive it with all thanksgiving. The preparatory part of the plan, as regards time, ought, as I have already stated, to be regulated according to circumstances, but when a new field is opened for missionary labors, I cannot convince myself that a shorter period than 10 years' location of the tribe or nation, under civilized guidance, would be sufficient to remove the deep-rooted apathy of the savage, and prepare his mind for religious instruction, or perhaps it would be still nearer the mark to adopt the more general opinion on this point, and that is, that an age is not too long for assembling, locating, training, and instructing the savage in the habits of civilization, industry, and economy, before introducing even public schools among them. Another age under scholastic discipline might be required to prepare them for the next and most important step, and in the third generation only might religion, as practiced in civilized life, be thoroughly introduced with effect among them. This would be laying the basis of a solid and permanent plan. In reference to the missionary himself, whose pious work is the conversion of souls, the apostle reminds us, "How beautiful are the feet of them that preach the gospel of peace," and while the 338 missionary follows, in all its purity, the work of faith and labor of love, all men are in charity bound to contribute to his assistance, and aid in bringing about, by the application of appointed means, the great work of salvation. But then, to encourage all men to do so, the missionary, like the apostles of old, who in simplicity and godly sincerity told their Lord and Master what they had done, and what they had taught, ought to tell his masters, with the same simplicity and uprightness, what he has done, and what he has taught, without exaggeration or any false coloring. This course would indeed inspire confidence, and give such a direction and impetus to popular opinion as would lead all to cooperate for the good of mankind. But the missionary at home and the missionary abroad are two distinct characters. The latter, from his position and the influence he acquires over the general conduct, as well as consciences, of the simple and ignorant people with whom he lives, and who on every occasion look up to him for advice in temporal as well as for instruction in spiritual matters, of course becomes a great man, not only in their estimation, but in his own also, till at last the force of habit gains an ascendancy over him, and often leads him astray from the path of evangelical duty. He is no longer the humble and zealous disciple he was when he left home, but considers himself the chief man in civil as well as in religious matters. But the paramount evil which frustrates all the labors of the missionary is that arising from sects, 339, of different persuasions interfering with one another, an evil which tends rather to destroy than promote religious feelings among savages, and which nothing less than the potent arm of government can prevent, for it is no uncommon thing in the wilderness to see the pious and persevering evangelist, after undergoing every hardship, to open a new field for his labors among the heathen, followed after by some weak zealot of another sect, who had not energy or courage of himself to lead, but who no sooner reaches the cultivated vineyard of his precursor than he begins the work of demoralization and injustice, by denying the creed and labors of his predecessor, clothes some disaffected chief, and infuses animosity and discord among all parties, in order to get a footing and establish himself, and where envy and strife are, according to the apostles' doctrine, there are confusion and every evil work, and every additional zealot of a different creed in this field of strife increases the disorder, for all Indians are peculiarly fond of novelty, consequently, the last creed is with them the best. Now where there are 2, 3, or more conflicting creeds at one station, as is often the case, it may truly be said, there is neither religion nor religious fellowship to be found in that community, but, on the contrary, every moral and religious sentiment is destroyed, and the people are sunk deeper and deeper in the gulf of moral degradation, and not only that, but the missionaries, one and all, labor in vain. Yet, strange as it may appear, such unhallowed and demoralizing scenes seldom reach either the public eye or the public. 340 ear, for the missionary or zealot of each sect, in writing home to the parent society, so far from noticing and reporting, with official uprightness, the true state of things, cheats the public by exhibiting a picture of marvelous success. Solomon hath declared that he that soweth iniquity shall reap vanity. Surely there ought to be some law existing to protect and secure to the first missionary the fruits of his enterprise and pious labor against all such corrupt and impious interference. To exemplify this part of our subject still further, I was once traveling along the frontiers of Canada, when I came to a neat little Indian village, on the bank of the St. Lawrence, containing about 300 souls. They had a missionary, a little white chapel, and a thriving school, and I thought them at the time, as they also considered themselves, perfectly comfortable and happy. 3 years afterwards, a friend of mine happened to pass through the same village, but in place of finding them happy as they had been, everything in and about the place was changed. The inhabitants were less numerous. Instead of one missionary and one church, they had, during the short interval, got 3 missionaries, all of different persuasions, and 3 churches. But so high did the tide of religious animosity among all parties then run, that one of the churches had been recently burnt to the ground, by some of the fanatics themselves, another was despoiled of all its ornaments, and deserted, and the third remained, a sad memento of the times, with but few hearers, and in place of one thriving school, there had been no less, 341, but with scarcely a scholar in any of them. Such are the fruits that generally result from the unhallowed practice of one sect interfering with another. Appendix Chinook Vocabulary 1 I 2 Muxt 3 Thloon 4 Lacat 5 Quinum 6 Tuchum 7 Sinamuk State Istuktikin 9 Quiest 10 Etathlelum 11 Etathlelum Equinite 12 Etathlelum Equin Muxt 13 Etathlelum Equin Thloon 14 Etathlelum Equin Lacat 15 Etathlelum Equin Quinum 16 Etathlelum Equin Tuchum 17 Etathlelum Equin Sinamux 18 Etathlelum Equin Istuktikin 19 Etathlelum Equin Quiest 20 Muxt Thlolth 21 Muxt Thlolth Equinite 22 Muxt Thlolth Equin Muxt 343 23 Muxt Thlolth Equin Thloon 24 Muxt Thlolth Equin Lacat 25 Muxt Thlolth Equin Quinum 26 Muxt Thlolth Equin Tuchum 27 Muxt Thlolth Equin Sinamux 28 Muxt Thlolth Equin Istuktikin 29 Muxt Thlolth Equin Quiest 30 Thloon Thlolth 31 Thloon Thlolth Equinite 32 Thloon Thlolth Equin Muxt 33 Thloon Thlolth Equin Thloon 40 Lacat Thlolth 50 Quinum Thlolth 60 Tuchum Thlolth 70 Sinamuxt Thlolth 80 Istuktikin Thlolth 90 Quiest Thlolth 100 Ethaca Munich 200 Muxt Ethaca Munich 300 Thloon Ethaca Munich 400 Lacat Ethaca Munich 500 Quinum Ethaca Munich 1000 Hio 2000 Hio 3000 Hio 4000 Hio 5000 Hio Head Flamek took hair click axe. Eyes et suck out eyebrows tekilikit sleep archin kumeku ets nose emiates mouth emet skill ears oak cussa beard tevi evex cheeks kapalakitanix. 344, teeth otsatsak neck oak quamux face orfu est arms etispoletic fingers tecuxake ribs teleman shoulders ok chak shalia quilia matic breasts emet sortic back emek cutsake belly eat sawane legs eat su feet tekika cock grandfather yokaka grandmother ikeka father mama mother nahar uncle yate tessa aunt elkichausha brother au sister at son etsika daughter ok char nephew ak husband click chal wife o quaki cull brother-in-law ek kek sister-in-law o quetum son-in-law exizek daughter-in-law okast relations cap wulad equal so maiden ulik boy e kaskas girl o kathla pelchek fear quas enemies il keko matic I or me nika 345 Mine nisika you or thou mika yours misika he each shea warit eek that eek these ark here eek who cluckster they or them yaf ka and equinif sminik. By and by elk or quana where kaki walchu that cat tar went shek nothing one it and how many. Queen Tshek yes no next or kia that is it yuf ca long ago and Kate be quick I ake just now alk none k next more what little enox goody to kati bad masat si chief tie or ekok a man a slave, elite or miss Indians tilak come man kolelakam woman clack al house tolth horse cutan, 346. Dog kamux cat piss hog polo backs it is true na wetka sit down methlite rise up echalatsa come here essa go away al choy large ya quantal too small minik for what cat the ass. Affection teki barter kilimak idle talk kaltashwa wa perhaps thlun ask give it me thlumiluta fossud etel mina shoot sleep optet go off a kenny koya go to bed mahokst today chow yesterday to nilki tomorrow woche elk maluk elk skin clemel small deer wow which canoe kinev ship marmartal white people pashishio case river ik whole land ilahi salmon equana sturgeon alchi gun suck wall al blanket parchich till cup blue cloth uthlal or thread cloth pill 347 white till cup black or blue uthlal or fax kits tan knife a pitchake needle ke pa what beads come usak kettle use and wood excoun chest excoun bad weather eqs a crane is to elch sun you laugh moon al che night polakly far off see a doctor keel alley good spirit econe bad spirit eq tark heart eats him ort sick it sitsa it's done hilo full paddle swan o uvuka goose calais Lama duck o quikech prophet itaminur priest itaminur sea otter ilaki land otter enanimux beaver in a muskratim intikube. H woot eat makamek hungry olo I am hungry nika olo bread chap all el water ilchu, 348. Take it eskam fire ulips cat oie pool powder te woot to look nananich what's your name. Cat the chal. Shame nacha mats balls kalaton strawberries oleal raspberries a mute potatoes wapato sweet onions ulalaka present pat latch to make marka iron chick amen brass wire thak al medicine ept lake buttons sil steel capsula understand each imely to speak kepola law great many hio kapot kapoilort the same quackik qua game chali chal hand sumitati herrings owl chows tobacco keen old how many whites. Queen Shek Pashishaks. Besides the foregoing language, there is another lingo, or rather mixed dialect, spoken by the Chinook and other neighboring tribes, which is generally used in their intercourse with the whites. It is much more easily learned, and the pronunciation, 349, more agreeable to the ear than the other, as will appear from the annexed specimen. Great chief highs tie yes slave miss Jamis woman clush man child tunas good closh bad pishak no wake trade macalk canoe chipots very little taran us balls pole alley see otter quat luck it's true na wet car ha how are you? Flajoya to speak wa what iketamite polacly come here chico go away flat away by and by Winnipie understand come atax big or large high ass rain snas ship good spirit is co-com come in methlite I love you techie game mintic what are you going to trade? Iketamika macalk. By and by I'll come again Winnipie nika chico. 350, a table of the weather at the mouth of the Columbia River, from March 22 ND till July 22 ND, 1811. Month and year winds state of the weather wet days dry days 1811. The 22nd of March SW snow and hail 123 watts snow and rain 124 SW rain 125 SW moderate 126 SW fog and rain 127 watts clear 128 SW rain 129 rain 130 watts. Some snow 131 SW clear weather the 1st of April 1 watt rain 12 watts rain 13 SW clear and dry 14 watts clear 15 clear 16 SW rain 17 N rain 18 SW foggy 19 SW clear 10 SW rain 11 watts rain 12 N rain 13 N heavy fog 14 SW clear 115 SW clear 16 SW rain 17 watts clear 18 watts foggy 19 SW clear 20 SW. Some rain 121 mist and rain 122 clear 123 watts clear 124 SW clear 125 SW rain 126 rain 1, 351. 27 N mist and rain 128 N clear 129 clear 130 SW clear the 1st of May 1 SW clear 12 SE cloudy 13 SE rain 14 SW clear 15 watts heavy fog 16 N mist and rain 17 watts clear 18 SW clear 19 SW clear 110 foggy and rain 11 watts clear 112 watts clear 113 SW clear 114 N rain 115 NW clear and warm 116 SW clear and dry 117 SW clear 118 SW fog and rain 119 watts. Heavy mist 120 watts clear 121 SW clear 122 SW clear 123 NE rain 124 NE clear 125 watts clear 126 SW rain 127 SW foggy and clear 128 rain 129 N rain 130 SW clear 131 SW clear the 1st of June 1 watt clear and dry 12 watts clear 13 SW clear 14 SW clear. Wind 15 clear 16 N rain 17 SW foggy 18 watts clear 19 watts clear 110 SW clear 111 SW mist 1, 352. 12 SW clear 113 NW foggy 114 N rain 115 rainy 116 NW clear 117 watts clear 118 watts very sultry 119. SW Strong Heat 120, SW Sultry 121, SW Sultry 122, SW Dull Weather 123 watts, Rain 124, NW Rain 125 watts, Cloudy 126, SW Clear 127, SW Clear 128 watts, Clear 129, NE Very Sultry 130, E Cloudy the 1st of July 1, SW Clear and Dry 12, SW Thermometer stood 93 degrees 3345 watts, Windy and Rain 16, SW Clear and Warm 478910 watts, Sultry Thermometer 92 degrees 21112, SW Sultry and Calm 313 14 15 watts, Cloudy and Rain 116, N Cloudy, some rain 117 watts, Clear and Dry 418 19 20 21, SW Thermometer AB 095 222 1. Gabriel Franche, Voyage, French original, published at Montreal in 1820, English translation published in New York, 1854, Ross Cox, Adventures on the Columbia River, London, 1831, and Alexander Ross, Adventures, London, 1849. We reprint the first and third of these. 2 for a brief account of the discoveries of the Northwest Coast, Seathwaite's, Rocky Mountain Exploration, New York, 1904, chap. I4 Notes on Vancouver and Drake, see Franche's Narrative, Volume 6 of our series, Notes 2, 66. Further references to this narrative, in the following notes, will be to that reprint. Ed3. For brief sketch of John Jacob Aestia, see Franche's Narrative, Volume 6. Of our series, Note 8. Ed4. For the history of the great fur trade companies, see Turner, Character and Influence of the Fur Trade in Wisconsin, Wisconsin Historical Society Proceedings, 1889, Chittenden, History of American Fur Trade in Far West, New York, 1902, J. Long's Voyages, Volume 2 of our series, Preface. The Mackinac Company, composed of British subjects, was formed before the surrender of the Upper Lakes posts to the Americans, 1796. It operated chiefly in the West and Southwest, and in 1807, Americans on Lake Ontario fired upon its brigade. See Michigan Pioneer and Historical Collections, XXV, pp. 250-257. This company was a source of dispute between Canada and the United States until Aestia purchased its stock. At the time of sale, the Northwest Company's partners held a controlling interest. Ed5. The word Oregon was not an appellation of the Spaniards, but appears to have first been employed in 1778 by the English traveller, Captain Jonathan Carver, concerning whom see J. Long's Voyages, Volume 2 of our series, Note 5. On the meaning thereof, see Oregon Historical Society Quarterly, June, 1900, also H. H. Bancroft, History of Oregon, San Francisco, 1886, I. pp. 1725. Ed6. For brief biography of these partners of the Pacific Fur Company, see Bradbury's Travels, Volume V of our series, Note 4, Franch's narrative, Notes 9, 10. ed. 7. Concerning Mackenzie's discoveries, see Franch, Note 4. Mackay accompanied Mackenzie upon his second voyage to the Pacific, not upon his first expedition to the Arctic. Ed. 8. Relative to Hunt, Crooks, McClellan, and Miller, see Bradbury's Travels, Volume V of our series, Notes 2, 3, 72. For Clark, see Franch, Note 81. Ed. 9. For what is known of these Clarks, see Franch, Notes 76, 84. For Robert Stewart, see Bradbury's Travels, in our Volume V, Note 117. Ed. 10. Compare the following description of the voyage of the Tonquin with that of Franch, on the Constitution Captain Thorne, and the Hawaiian Islands, see Ibid, Notes 18, 19, 21. Ed. 11. Compare Ross's account of the Hawaiian Islands with that of Franch, especially Notes 22-34. Ed. 12. Compare the following account with that of Franch, particularly Notes 36, 37, 40, 41. Ed. 13. Compare Ross's description of the building of Astoria with that of Franch, particularly Notes 42, 44, 61. Ed. 14. The tribes of the Pacific coast were numerous, and their classification varies. For the Chinook, Clatsop, Wakiakum, Cathlapotal, Cattleputtles, Tillamook, Killamuks, Multnomah, and Chehalis, Chekelis, see Franch, Notes 39, 40, 45, 52, 53, 65, 67. The other tribes cannot positively be identified, except the Cathlamat, Cathlamuks, who were a branch of the Upper Chinook, giving name to the town of Cathlame, Washington. On the subject of the native races of this section, see Thwaites, Original Journals of Lewis and Clark Expedition, New York, 1904, under Scientific Data, Ethnology. Ed. 15. For information concerning the wood rat, see Otter, and Chbool, see Franch, Notes 128-130. Ed. 16. For the characteristic fish of this coast, see Franch, Notes 88, 124-126. The Ulican is the candlefish, so named because it is fat enough to burn for illuminating purposes. Ed. 17. For the Wapato root see Franch, Note 87. Ed. 18. Captain John Meares, born about 1756, served in the British Navy, where he attained the rank of lieutenant. After the Peace of Paris, 1783, he entered the merchant service, and founded a commercial house in Macau, China, to trade with the northwest coast of North America. In 1786 he made his first voyage thither. 2 years later, he formed an establishment at Nuka Sound, and explored the coast to the south, failing, however, to recognize the outlet of the Columbia as the mouth of a great river. In 1789, Meares's establishment at Nuka was demolished by the Spaniards, which led to the diplomatic incident known as the Nootka Sound episode. His book appeared during this controversy. Voyages made in the years 1788 and 1789 to the N.W. coast of America, London, 1791. Meares finally returned to the Navy, became commander in 1795, and died in 1809. Ed. 19. For brief account of Vancouver, see Franche, Note 2. Port Discovery, on the northern coast of Washington, was named for Vancouver's ship. Desolation Sound was farther north in the Gulf of Georgia. Ed. 20. For the appearance of these flattened heads, see Clark's drawings of the Chinook, in original journals of Lewis and Clark Expedition. Ed. 21. For the promontory known as Tongue Point, see Franche, Note 44. Gray's Bay was named for Captain Robert Gray, opposite, Note 1. Othlamok Point is that now known as Kathlame Point, in Clatsop County, Oregon. This does not bound Gray's Bay, except as it is the point below which the river widens into great inlets. Ed. 22. Puget's Island, in the Columbia opposite Kathlame, Washington, was named when Broughton explored the Columbia, 1792, for Peter Puget, lieutenant of Vancouver's vessel, the Discovery. For Oak Point, see Franche, Note 74. Ross is the only contemporary writer who mentions this Indian village by name. Ed. 23. Ross confuses the names of two landmarks. The first should be Mount Coffin, see Franche, Note 48, the second Coffin Rock. The first is an isolated cliff on the Washington bank of the river, the second a rocky islet toward the Oregon side, both used as places of Indian sepulture. For Deer Island, see Franche, Note 75. Ed. 24. For this chief, see Franche, Note 51. Ed. 25. The Namoit Indians were one tribe of those designated by Lewis and Clark as the Wapato Indians. See original journals of Lewis and Clark Expedition, under Scientific Data, Estimate of Western Indians. For Bellevue Point, see Franche, Note 55. Johnson's Island was named by Broughton, 1792, for the lieutenant of his vessel, the Chatham. Lewis and Clark called it Diamond Island. It is now known as Government Island, in Multnomah County, Oregon. Waysugal, Waysufalai, is a small stream entering the Columbia from the north, in Clark County, Washington. Quicksand River, so named by Lewis and Clark, is the present Sandy, a considerable stream draining the western slope of Mount Hood, and flowing into the Columbia through Multnomah County, Oregon. Ed. 26. For the location of Point Vancouver, see Franche, Note 55. Ed. 27. The rock that Ross and the Scotch Canadians of his party named in Shoch Castle was probably the well-known landmark now called Beacon Rock, which marks the extent of tidal influence, and may be seen for 20 miles down the river. Ed. 28. For Strawberry Island and the portage of the Cascades, see Franche, Note 112. ed 29. Lewis and Clark called these natives at the Cascades, Clark-Lelas, and included them among the generic name of Shahalas, a branch of the Upper Chinook. The tribesmen were a thieving, troublesome lot, as Ross's subsequent narrative will show. Ed 30. Wind River, in Skamania County, Washington. Ed 31. Michel Bollard had since 1800 been a voyager with Thomson. In 1806–07 he wintered at Rocky Mountain House, and the following spring crossed the range to Kootenay. The next 4 winters were spent in the mountains, and he was one of the 7 canoemen who brought Thomson to Astoria in July 1811. For his later connection with the Astorians, see post. Ed 32. Ross's designations of Indian tribes differ from those of other travelers in this region. Lewis and Clark called the permanent dwellers at the Narrows, Utes. Wampum must be another name for the same tribe, a branch of the Upper Chinooks. Ed 33. The river which Ross calls Loham had several designations among early travelers. Lewis and Clark call it Tawarnayaks. All evidently endeavored to give it the Indian name, which was an imitation of the sound made by the falls at its mouth. It is at present known as Des Chutes River. Ed 34. Ross later relates the adventures of the pioneer John Day, from whom this river takes its name. Ed 35. The identification of Supah River is uncertain. The largest affluent of the Columbia between John Day and Umatilla River is that Oregon stream now known as Willow Creek. Ed 36. For the Umatilla River, see Franch, note 141. A large isolated cliff, just below the mouth of the Umatilla, is still called Castle Rock. Ed 37. The rapid here described, is now known as the Umatilla Rapid. Lewis and Clark designated it as the mussel shell from the heaps of those shells spread out upon the banks. The brigade had just passed the present boundary of Oregon, 46 degrees of north latitude. Ed 38. The Walla Walla Indians are of the Shahapshan stock, one of the great families of the inland Columbians, to which the Nez Perces and Umatilla belong. Usually they were hospitable and well affected towards the whites. Lewis and Clark especially mention their friendly disposition. Many years later, they became disaffected and joined the Keos in acts of hostility. A treaty was made with the Walla Wallas in 1855, whereby they surrendered their lands, and retired to the Umatilla Reservation, where at the last report, 1902, 569 were still residing. The Shawhaptons were a kindred race speaking the Shahapshan language. This appears to be the first mention of the Keos tribe, later so prominent in Oregon history. Their language was unlike that of the Walla Walla, so that they are classified as Waulatpuans. Their habitat was the Walla Walla Valley, and south and east of the Great Bend of the Columbia. Their herds of horses were so numerous that Keos has become a generic term for Indian ponies. These Indians constituted the largest and most powerful tribe of eastern Oregon. Among them the American Board founded a mission, and it was this tribe that perpetrated the Whitman Massacre of 1847. Broken in spirit and numbers by the settlers avenging warfare, 5 chiefs were in 1850 surrendered for trial and executed. 5 years later, the Keas formally ceded their lands and retired to the Umatilla Reservation, where 391 are now, 1902, reported. They have abandoned their language for that of the Walla Walla. Ed. 39. Thomson records, the 9th of July, 1811, 1/2 a mile to the junction of the Shawpatin, Snake, River with this the Columbia, here I erected a small pole, with a half sheet of paper well tied about it, with these words on it: Know hereby that this country is claimed by Great Britain as part of its territories, and that the N.W. Company of Merchants from Canada, finding the factory for this people inconvenient for them, do intend to erect a factory in this place for the commerce of the country around. D. Thomson. Henry Thomson Journals, p. 748. Ed. 40. Ross is here inaccurate. The Snake River was called the Lewis, but to the Columbia above the fork, the explorers never applied the name of Clark, that was given to the large northern branch still called Clark's Fork of the Columbia, upon whose upper waters the explorers rested when crossing the mountains. Ed. 41. The Yakima, Yaxma, River enters the Columbia from the east, about 10 miles above the Snake. It is a large tributary, draining the eastern slope of the Cascade Range. Lewis and Clark called it the Tapteet. The Northern Pacific Railway follows the valley of the Yakima for some distance. Ed. 42. It was on the return journey, the 1st of May, 1806, that 3 Walla Walla overtook Lewis and Clark, with a steel trap which they had traveled a day's journey to restore. Ed. 43. This is the Guilquill Rapid, 110 miles above the mouth of Snake River. The Quaftoenamax are mentioned only by Ross. They were probably a Pisquau tribe. For a description of the Columbia above the entrance of the Snake, see Simmons, Upper Columbia River, Washington, 1882. Ed. 44. Column Bluffs is the usual designation of this point on the river, about 10 miles above Guilquill Rapid. According to an Indian legend, 2 wicked women who lived here were accustomed to kill those who passed. The Indians begged the Great Spirit to destroy them, and he, answering their prayer, sent an immense bird which picked out their brains and turned them into stone. Ed. 45. Lewis and Clark called this river Wancha, after the tribe of Pisquau Indians of that name who dwelt along its banks. Wenatchee and Piscus are both used to designate the stream at the present time. It takes its rise in the Wenatchee Mountains and flows southeastward, emptying into the Columbia 148 miles from the mouth of the Snake. The Great Northern Railway follows its course. Ed. 46. Oak Point, mentioned so frequently in accounts of Columbian exploration, was near Astoria, France, note 74. The one here referred to must be near the mouth of the Enciatqua, Entiatkum, River, known to the Canadian voyageurs as Point de Bois. The Enciatqua, which Ross calls Intikluk, is a small stream about 100 feet wide, flowing into the Columbia from the west, 15 miles above the Piscus. ED 47. Between Oak Point and White Hill Rapid, the west bank is a continuous volcanic bluff about 2,000 feet high and striped with different colored strata: white, gray, black, and dark brown. The rapid was doubtless named from the White Hills on the eastern side. ED 48. Concerning these animals, see Franch, Note 172. ED 49. This is the Chelan River, which empties into the Columbia from the northwest, about 185 miles above the Snake. It is but 2.5 miles long, is the outlet of a considerable lake of the same name, and has a fall of 250 feet. Just above its mouth was the principal village of the Chelan tribe, a branch of the Salish. A military post was established on this lake, 1880, but not long after was removed to Spokane. ED 50. Ross also calls this the Methow River, and Methow is at present the usual appellation. The rapids just below the mouth have been named Ross Rapids, probably in honor of our author. ED 51. The distance is really about 125 miles. For a brief history of Okanagan Post, see Franch, Note 71. ED 52. This river was discovered by the explorer Thomson, for whom see Franch, Note 61. It has two large branches, a northern and an eastern, which unite at Lake Kamloops, 150 miles directly north of the Okanagan Post. The united stream then flows southwest for about 90 miles and unites with the Fraser. Thomson, thinking that he was upon the Columbia, descended its northern branch to the Forks. ED 53. The Shuswaps, Shewaps, are a branch of the Salishan family and closely allied in language and habits to the tribes about Okanagan Post. They were also called Atnas, strangers, a name given them by the Carrier Indians, farther to the northwest. They formerly occupied the country along the Thomson and its branches, but by 1900 they were reduced to 54 persons. ED 54. For an account of this Indian, see Franch, Note 46. ED 55. Compare Franch's account of the destruction of the Tonkin with this of Ross. The village was Newwitty or New Witty. Nuka Sound is on the west coast of Vancouver Island, in latitude 49 degrees 50 north. ED 56. For notes on the following persons and places mentioned in this chapter, see Bradbury's Travels, Volume V of our series, Hunt, Note 2, Mackenzie, Note 4, Crooks, Note 3, Missouri Fur Company, Note 149, Miller, Note 72, Nadua, Note 5, McClellan, Note 72. ED 57. This route, traveled by Marquette and Joliet in 1673, was from a well-established Indian and French waterway between the Great Lakes and the Mississippi. The Fox River, of Wisconsin, was ascended from Green Bay to the present site of Portage, Wisconsin. A portage path of 1.5 miles in length was followed, in floods, the intervening swamp was overflowed, and Wisconsin River waters emptied into the Fox, and the Wisconsin was descended to its junction with the Mississippi, at Prairie du Chien. Ed. 58. The Three Tetons are the most noted historic peaks in the Rocky Mountains. The topography of the country is such that the highest peak, Grand Teton, 13,691 feet, can be seen from a great distance and has long served as a landmark to trappers and pioneers. Unlike the mountains of that region, the Tetons are not hemmed in by foothills, but rise in bold relief from the surrounding plateau, the Grand Teton towering 7,000 feet above Jackson Lake, at its base. The range is but 60 miles long and lies some 25 miles southwest of Yellowstone Lake. It is crossed by Teton Pass, about 20 miles south of Grand Teton. Ed. 59. For a sketch of Stewart, see Bradbury's Travels, Volume V of our series, Note 119. Russell Farnham of Massachusetts came to Astoria on the Tonkin. He left with Captain Hunt on the brig Peddler was landed at Kamchatka, journeyed overland to Hamburg, and sailed thence to New York. When the American Fur Company resumed operations after the War of 1812–15, he was foremost in endeavoring to establish posts on the Missouri River. In 1831 he had charge of the trade in the country of the Sauk and Fox Indians, and died at St. Louis, the 30th of October, 1832. Ed. 60. For a brief description of the Snake Indians, see Bradbury's Travels, Note 123. Ed. 61. Lewis and Clark state that the Indians designated the Great Falls of the Columbia by the words Tim, so pronounced as to represent the fall of a distant cataract. Ed. 62. Simon Fraser, on his first expedition west of the Rocky Mountains, 1805, gave the name New Caledonia to the region of Stewart and Upper Fraser Rivers, whose numerous lakes, lying among the bold and craggy mountains, reminded him of the Scotch Highlands. The following year, accompanied by John Stewart, he farther explored the country and established St. James Post, on Stewart.